Hello, everybody. Season 3, episode 33. We have the second half of our Home and Home series with Phil Bailey, realtor with House Sigma. Phil, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, Stephen. I really appreciate you getting me on the podcast. It was awesome to have you on my podcast, and now I just see that this home series is just continuing for you. So I'm really happy to be part of it.
That's right. Hey, it's great to have you on because, listen, we got to tell the people, as you know, I've now gone back to video, right, after years of not being on video. And because of you, we're back on video because you got me onto the software that we're using and stuff like that. So if everyone's got to look at my ugly mutt face for these videos, it's actually your fault. So if anyone wants to call Phil, they can. 51.
Yeah, you can just I thought if I met someone as pretty as you, Stephen, that you need to be on video. And a lot of people say that I have the voice for radio, but I said, you know what, you're gonna have to look at me as well if you wanna watch this on YouTube. But then I also say, hey, you can always listen to the audio version if you're sick of looking at me. So you have two
That's
options
it.
here.
That's it. Exactly. Anyway, it's great chatting with you. So let's get right into it, man. So listen, you're a realtor in beautiful London, Ontario. You got a young family, the whole bit. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, man.
Yeah, so I became a real estate agent, I think a little less than 10 years ago now. And I've always been interested in real estate. Had my first duplex in London, actually, when I was kind of just finishing up at the University of Western Ontario, they called it at the time. And now apparently it's just called Western University. But
Yeah.
I can't keep up with all the kids these days. So I think I got an interest in real estate from that. And then I just watched way too much like real estate reality TV show, and I said this can't be that difficult. So I decided to get my real estate license, and yeah, I have a beautiful family in London as well. My wife's from London as well. I grew up here, and kind of it's been an interesting family affair as well, because I think when you're a real estate agent, your whole family needs to be involved in it. And having a young daughter now as well, I get some flexibility to pick her up from daycare or drop her off some days, but other days, like tonight, for example, will be in dealing with offers tonight, and that's going to be a lot of a fun time. So have to have a partner that understands what we're all going through and can be your therapist as well.
Awesome. Yeah, you froze up a little bit there, but I'm gonna put two and two together. Basically, your family is important to you, but in the same breath, it's like, yeah, these jobs, man. I tell as you know, I'm growing my team a little bit, and I tell the new folks, like, you gotta control your schedule, or this job will just take your soul. You gotta organize your time. You gotta balance off family, and it's tough, right? I mean, how long have you been doing this for now?
So just less than 10 years, I think. I was trying to count today. I think it's probably like eight and a half, nine or so. So just seeing the change of, dealing with a real estate market that has changed so drastically over the last little while. Sometimes it's really crazy. Sometimes it's a little bit more chill and you have to plan your schedule. But I agree. If you have any tips for me, Steven, I'm all ears, because I don't think I've figured out yet how to do that. I think I answer my phone far too quickly sometimes, but and I was thinking about that too. It's like your clients become your friends become your clients. There's this whole kind of intermishing of everything that happens, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't trade it for anything else. It's an interesting. I don't have a boss, so that's always cool. I guess my clients are my boss now, but the interesting thing about that is you can fire your clients if you actually have to, if they're total jerks. But I like to not do that. So it's been yeah, it's a journey for sure. It's an interesting journey we've all been on.
Yeah, and being self-employed, and I mean, as the people know here, I left the bank after 25 years, and I'm on my own now. And listen, I'm like a kid in a candy shop, man. It's like I can do this on my own. I don't have to worry about, and listen, RBC was amazing to me, so it's not where I'm going with this. It's you're your own boss, man. You want to make a change, right? You want to hire a person. You want to do this, do it. And that's my that it's become a dream, if I can even say that, being a mortgage broker in this day and age. But yeah, it's been awesome, and I am not the one to come to for advice for dealing with your spouse and this kind of job, because my wife, who doesn't even listen to this, so I can say whatever for the most part, but man, she gets so pissed off because I'm that type of personality. And God, I hope she doesn't listen to this, but I'm the what is it? Beg for forgiveness instead of permission. It's bad. But I started a whole volleyball club and forgot to ask her about it. And God bless her. Like she's so supportive, but I'm not good. Don't ask me for relationship advice. It's not good. It's just not good. But having said that, God bless her. She's been with me a long time, so she puts up
Yeah,
with
no,
it.
it's interesting you mentioned that because I think there's something I've always been, as part of my business, say we should have a social kind of impact in some way, right? Or have something that we do. Like for you, you started the whole volleyball, club without even asking your wife, right? And there's always been something I always wanted to volunteer and do something, and I've been doing that in London as much as I can with fundraisers and events and community events as much as possible. And then when I had a kid, I kind of thought maybe I should pare that back a little bit, and I think, because I realized that that is my social kind of project for the next, I would say, 18 years, but I think the way that things are going with the housing market, probably more like, 35 years or so, where, I need to focus my attention on that. That's my volunteer hours now. And, I mean, it's an amazing experience, but wow, it's a lot of work. And, my daughter's, yeah, she's less than 1 year old. So it's a lot of work, but amazing experience,
Yeah.
highly recommended if you want to do it. But it's something I know, but it's just something that's been a few years. So it's definitely changed, I think, the way that I look at business. And if I want to go do a showing somewhere an hour away from town, well, it better be darn worth it for me, because that means I'm taking that much time away from, my family and my kid, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's changed my whole mindset on that a little bit, and it's been an interesting change, I think, in a good way, because it's obviously I'm not going to just waste time on something that has nothing to do with my business, and going to be making, at the end of the day, making me money, but also being able to help a client buy or sell a house.
Yeah, I was on I took in a panel discussion with realtors going back now probably 8 9 years, and it was can't remember what the topic was, but it was basically 6 or 7 of like top producing real estate agents at a particular firm, and the one lady got up and they were talking about what they do and how they manage clients and stuff like that. But the one lady said, and honestly, Phil, I've never forgotten it, because at the time, our kids were, call it maybe 11, 13, like in that range, right? About 8 9 years ago. And the one thing she said was, I don't care what I'm doing. My advice to everyone, don't miss your kids growing up. Because she goes, there's always another deal, but your kid, you can't get that back, right? And I never forgot that. I'm like, you know what? I got to remember that, right? Nothing is more important than watching that happen, So, that's something I always try to keep in mind, because you don't get that time back. My daughter's 20, my son's 22. Believe me, you don't get that time back. Right now we're got
Yeah.
adults here, right, stealing my bloody alcohol. So anyway,
They
so
filling it up with water the rest of the way.
oh yeah. So God, I hope they're not listening, because I used to do that, man. I used to do that. I'm like, it's not. They freaking do that. It's over. They're out, man. Don't screw with my
It's
rum.
done. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Rent's over. Get out of here. Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
No,
So
it is interesting you mentioned that, because it's really interesting to me, because I've found the job, and I think it's where I was at when I had a kid, is that I was actually I felt pretty far along and not just starting out, right? And so a lot of the time I found the amazing flexibility of getting to hang out with her during the day, and now she's starting daycare, so that's a whole other kind of thing that we're dealing with. But in general, there was a lot of days where, yeah, you get that extra hour of hanging out with her at 11 a.m. or she was, let's go bounce a baby while you're waiting for an offer to come back, was kind of my best stress reliever that I could possibly do, right? So it was kind of, I honestly am so thankful, and I feel really, blessed to be able to have this job, I think, because as much as it is stressful, and yeah, it's a lot of hours, and what is work and what is family, and what, there's a bit of that where it's difficult to differentiate between the two sometimes. But I think that's
yes.
kind of what I like, right? It's, they always say that if you find something you really like to do, you won't really work a day in your life, right? And it actually is kind of something that I do most of the time.
Yeah.
Not always, but
Yeah.
most of the time I'm like, yeah, it's not like I'm going down to the coal mine every day, right? It's I'm not, people say I'm grinding every day as a real estate agent, and I kind of laugh at most of those people because I think it's a little bit silly because it's, we're not really I don't even get my hands dirty very often unless I'm going down to a dirty basement, right? So it's not that bad.
Okay, so let's stop all the bullshit here. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just talk really. Okay, come on. Your job is not a lot of fun. Okay, like we're gonna have lineups of people who want to be real estate agents now. Just stop, okay, please.
Come join the party, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so on that note, I mean, it sounds like obviously there's a big work-life balance with you. You got the kid, you got the wife, you got the flexibility. But why real estate? You can go sell a lot of other stuff and have the same flexibility. Why was it mainly just kind of how you started out with your first duplex and it just took off from there?
I think partially. I also think I always was interested in the sales side of things and maybe
Mm-hmm.
building a business. And I thought, well, what's an expensive thing that I could sell? As frank as that is, I think it's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people need, and I also just like touring cool houses, right? Like I enjoy architecture, I enjoy design. I like looking at things and I can tell you, hey, that looks a little weird to me, but I'm definitely not, an interior designer, an architect, and I don't want to be one of those people. But I
Yeah.
can also kind of see it from the investor perspective. Sometimes I can see it from just the family that it needs a house because they're having a kid or they're going through something and they need to downsize, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of that. I think it's just such a personal business. And I think I found that over time. Maybe I think I just got lucky maybe in the business that I picked, but I found the personal side of it is something that I love every single day because I get to go in and talk to people about just random people, and I've always enjoyed that, right? Just talking to
Awesome.
random people about things, and now I almost take it as a challenge. Well, if someone looks like they're a little bit pissy that day at me, well, let's try to win them over, right? And there's different personality types, but I think it's just one of the biggest things you can kind of sell, and also one of the biggest things you can kind of really help someone do, because there's obviously you hear the stories about people that may not be helping in the best way that they could, and obviously I try to sleep at night as best as I can, and I usually sleep like a baby, so it's good.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said for doing it for the right reason. And let me explain that. So there's a term, it's in mortgages and real estate, where, are you a realtor or a mortgage broker who's like a turn and burn, right? Are you a one trick pony with your clients and you get the sale and they never want to deal with you ever again? And I think, I mean, just in talking to you, like, I can tell you would have the best interest of the client at heart, right? And I know I would too. So I think being able to sleep at night is really important. But I think that's something that we've lost a little bit from our industry. You know what I mean? I think it's something where you got to be in it for the right reason. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're self-employed folks. It is a sales role, so there is a salesy kind of part of it. But in the same breath, we're dealing with people, right? Like the biggest purchase most people are ever going to make, and I think there's a place in the market for, folks like yourself and myself who it's like, yeah, we're in this for the right reason. We're not a turn and burn. Like, I'm sure you see that a little bit in your world, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you mentioned that because I think early on in my career, I focused a lot on talking to just pure strangers, right? And that's good. I mean, you need to meet people and talk to them about real estate. But after a little while, I learned that if I can do a good job and I can get referrals from other people that have already worked with me that I've enjoyed working with, those referrals are going to be very similar personality types, which is always the strangest thing to me. If you get a referral from someone who is in a certain maybe industry or just even a certain friend group, usually that friend will have a similar easy to work with nature that other person did, or professional nature, whatever you like. And not all my clients are very different. I'm not saying they're all the same, but it is interesting to me that there are times when you get that positive kind of mold that you're building, and you can kind of just grow that snowball over time. And I think that's what's so cool about it, is that yeah, it's selling houses and helping people buy and sell houses, but at the same time, I feel like it's you're building something. And if you build it as a transaction base and you look at everyone like transaction, I think it probably could work on maybe a smaller scale. But if you might not enjoy your job as much, I don't think. And I think if you build it on the
Sure.
relationship size, and now in the last few years started to do more community events and client events and a client appreciation. And wow, just the referrals I've done this year that even a couple of years ago I wasn't able to do are just out of the blue, right? I was talking to clients yesterday, and yeah, a referral from another house that I sold, and then got to know them, and then it's just an amazing kind of process that kind of grows together. And yeah, I'm a try to be the most positive person. It's not always like that, Stephen, as you know, but in general, I think there's such a cool thing about the relationship business building, because it's I'm not selling something that I'm not selling a car, right? Like people specifically, they want to know about the features of a house, but when I'm working with buyers, I go out there and I see a bunch of houses. To be honest, I don't really care what house they buy. I just want them to buy a house that makes them happy as a family, that they'll be happy with the transaction, they'll be happy with the relationship that we build, and then they can refer me to their friends and family, right? Yeah. Obviously, when I'm selling a house, I'm selling the house, right? But it's a bit of an interesting kind of thing, because I was thinking about the other day, you get to kind of be on both sides of that, and I think it's really cool that about 50% of my business is listings and 50% is buyers. So I get to see both sides of it, and I get to really learn a lot on both sides of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Listen, what you just described is business, though, period. It's what we do, right? And I think that's important. I think that's it's important to understand that, because I think sometimes I deal with this, and you deal with this too, where there's a bad reputation for sometimes for realtors and for mortgage brokers, right? It's tricky. So no, I'm with you, man. I think it's super, super important. So, all right. So you work for House Sigma, right? Now, when you first discover House Sigma, you usually lose 2-3 hours of your life, right? Going through the app, right? Creeping your neighbors, finding out where things are. You there with me, Phil?
I'm there.
Oh, you are there. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So for the people listening or watching on video, the reason why I all of a sudden had to ask if Phil was still there, his video has stopped moving, but he can still talk with me. So again, having a little fun with the software here. So if it all of a sudden gets a little creepy, that's why it is, and if I ask where he is. So anyway, moving on, halfway through my joke there. So House Sigma is where you work. As I said, when you first discover the House Sigma app, again, you lose 2-3 hours of your life that particular day. You're creeping on your neighbors, you're creeping on your house, the whole bit. So talk to me a little bit about House Sigma, okay? And it is your brokerage that you work with. What's it all about? Because it kind of sprung on the scene, 2-3 years ago-ish? Tell me about this.
Yeah, so interesting, because I can say it from the perspective of someone who was learning it in the same way that the average consumer was probably learning about House Sigma. So I worked for one of the large brands in Canada that everyone knows the name of. Why did I do that? Because I had someone else that I knew that worked there, and that's kind of how I came in. Love the experience of being a real estate agent, like the people in the office, still work with them every day. The thing that kind of was interesting to me about House Sigma is that at the time, this was about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had about 6 or 7 really active buyer clients that all bought a house, right? In the last maybe year or two. And all of them, and I'm like, I'm not exaggerating, every single one of them would send me texts or emails with the House Sigma listing. And what I found interesting about that is I asked them, because some of these people are personal friends. I've done multiple deals with them, people that I'm just curious about. And I said, like, why are you using House Sigma? Why aren't you using my website, or just we have our MLS that we can just send to people through they call it Matrix or whatever they call it, the different day that you talk to someone that named the software. But anyways, right. Why House Sigma? And I think the main reason that everyone told me was just they liked the user experience of House Sigma. And they also liked that they could see sales data on House Sigma. So what I would say about it is I learned more and more about it. And I realized that, it's a full service brokerage, just like all the other brokerages that I could have worked for, right? And the way that it's a lot of people maybe don't even understand this part of it, but as a real estate agent, same with, I guess, as a mortgage broker, is I run my own business. I can go join whatever I want. If I go to a brokerage, and this is something that real estate agents that are newer should really understand, is that you are interviewing the brokerage, not the other way around.
Same in
So
mortgages, man. Same, oh man,
you are
same in
paying the
mortgages.
brokerage to, be a part of their great team, and obviously the services they provide are very valuable to you, right? So started chatting with the team, and basically discovered, oh wow, they're a full service brokerage. I want to say around 2018 they became kind of a full service brokerage in Greater Toronto area, and then obviously have a London office as well. And happened to know some people in the London office, and just started, kind of chatting. And it was really just an interesting, refreshing experience, I think, in many ways, because I think there was this whole idea of, well, real estate agents have the data of the sold prices, so they're going to have to come to Phil to find out the data, and that's going to be a great conversation starter, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think if the bar is set as a real estate agent, that if your entire job is to just give someone a number that they should be able to find in a publicly, a public website, really. I mean, you have to sign up, but it's really a public website. To me, where we do a lot more as real estate agents, and one of the biggest things I think we do is we kind of guide you through the entire process from that point. That's just the starting point, all the way through to either buying or selling, or buying and selling maybe at the same time, that experience. So it's been a really, interesting experience for sure. And the interesting thing is, all my clients kind of that I was working with that were, or my kind of my network of people, everyone kind of stuck with me anyways. And there was, it's that personal business side of it. And it's been refreshing, I think, in a lot of ways. I think it's interesting what they're doing with the real estate industry as a whole, because it is just giving you a good user experience with great data, and everything they're doing is just based around that data point. Let's give the people what they want, right? Is kind of the way that it is functioned. And it is an app that you can look up, but I know, I'd say 7 or 8 out of 10 real estate agents in London, I know they're using House Sigma. So they might not work for them, but they're using it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's my business is the same as yours. Okay, where it is an absolute battle for the smartphone. How much can we be in front of our clients on a phone? Okay. And even for me, like when I was picking my brokerage, for example, and for those of you who don't know, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, we're part of a brokerage, okay, that basically facilitates the admin side, compliance, and all of our like deposit checks and whatever for realtors. It all goes through the brokerage, and the brokerage pays us. So we pay the brokerage a fee for whatever services they happen to offer. So I know with me, part of my decision process was I wanted a brokerage that really supported tech. Me, didn't need an office. I have my luxurious castle here, right? My basement doing podcasts. So I don't need an office. Don't need the fancy croissants, whatever. But again, business is pretty much the same, where, House Sigma, but like, I know on every single day, I will get at least 5 properties from my wife spread out over the day. I know when my wife goes to the bathroom, because I'm getting friggin' properties, and I'm just as bad with her. So if you can stay in front of your clients with an app, with whatever digital that you can figure out that your clients, that it adds value, hey, you know what? That's where we're going, right? That's absolutely where we're going with this. So that's where I was really interested about that whole House Sigma process and what it really does. And hey, it sounds like it's serving its purpose for you, for sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been an interesting kind of adventure, and I think when you go through changing a brokerage, as as I know, lots of us have to go through at some point, or whether they're just starting out as a an independent broker, it's interesting to me because that's such a nervous time. I know it was for me, because I switched brokerages. Bought a house, I think got married. Like there was like a bunch of stuff that happened over the little bit of time there. Yep. And so I just decided, let's just do it all at once, right? Like let's get it all done. And it all kind of has worked out beautifully. But it is a little bit of a scary process. But I will say that to every new real estate agent that's maybe they just got their license or thinking about getting it, you're interviewing the brokerage, not the other way around. And I think it's
Totally.
really important that, yeah, it's a team effort. I get that. That's really important. But don't go
Yeah.
into it thinking that you're interviewing for a job, because usually jobs pay you, right, without without doing just going to
Yeah.
work, and it's a little
Totally.
bit different than what we do as commission business owners, is the way that I look at it.
Well, and like I said earlier, like I'm growing my team, right? So I try. I say this. I said this on a previous podcast. If you still want to talk to me after the first interview, hey, let's talk because I don't know if I'm getting older, man, but I'm very honest with people. I don't want to tell them how rosy this job is when you first start or you're transitioning from a bank to a broker. I'm just very honest because I want people to come in eyes wide open. They can figure out their family situation. They can set expectations with their spouse. Don't be like me, right? Don't be the whole, beg for forgiveness instead of permission. Try to avoid that. Um, but I try as much as I can to give them the worst case, because to your point, interview me. You should be asking me some really tough questions. I'm the one, quite frankly, that's going to support you either making or breaking it in this world if I'm the team lead, right? Same with a brokerage. If you're looking at a brokerage and it's not a right fit, you got to be asking some tough questions. It blows my mind. I don't know if it's like this on the real estate side, but it blows my mind what some of these mortgage brokerages charge relative to what they give. And it's not much. It's not much, right? And listen, we're smaller, okay? My team's small. It's not humongous, ginormous, whatever. But yeah, it please, if you learn nothing else from this podcast and you want to become a realtor or a mortgage broker or whatever, like you said, interview the brokerage. Super super important. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Stephen.
yeah. All right, so London. Let's talk about the market, right? Because I don't know how any other way to describe the real estate market in Canada right now, other than like a roller coaster that you just want to throw up constantly. Like it's just up and down and left and right. It's just all over the place. So I know what I'm seeing in London. What are you seeing in London right now relative to um, number of sales, house prices, customer sentiment? What's your feel, man?
Yeah, so I think it's been interesting. The summer usually does slow down. I think probably in most areas in Ontario, I would assume, but I know in London for sure it slows down a bit. I noticed that over the summer. Yeah, it was slower in terms of I guess buyers were getting deals when they put offers in because there wasn't a lot of buyers ready to go at that point. Inventory is definitely, there's more available than there has been, I think, in a little while, but just some sales just maybe aren't happening, and I think that's just to do with the sentiment of the market and people being like, wait and see, right? Let's wait, see what happens. We'll wait for someone else to buy the house that we want, and then we'll try to buy it after, which is really impossible, but that's okay. So there's a
Yeah,
bit of that. I find the investor side has been interesting in London. We get a lot of investors looking for just duplex, triplex, but then there's also a lot of student rentals in London as well because we have Western University here, Fanshawe College.
yeah,
I think that's been an interesting bit of a market change as well because I'm seeing what some of these rooms are renting out at, and it is amazing to me that
insane.
like how like amazing and scary, I guess, depending on what
Yeah,
side of it you're on, because it's I've seen some that are well over $1,000 a month for a room, and I think that there's some interesting kind of I think investors that are still in the market, but I think a lot of the GTA folks have maybe not, they're not in the market the same level that they were when we were obviously in the pandemic period. I
yeah,
remember writing offers, being a listing agent, sorry, and receiving offers on offer night. And if there was 10 offers, you'd have maybe one that was from a local agent. Now it's kind of the opposite, right? There might be, depending on the
yeah.
price point, there might be maybe there's not multiple offers, I guess, depending on the price point. But if there are, yeah, you probably are dealing with mostly local agents. Personally, I like that side of it because then I have personal
Yeah,
relationships with these people, and they haven't,
sure.
they haven't just come onto the scene, written one offer, and then they say goodbye, and there's not really a reputation in London.
Yeah,
But at the same time, we have to work with whoever wants to buy our clients' homes, or we have to work at the buyer side, whoever is the listing side. So yeah, I've seen a little bit more of that. What was interesting, I think, and we talked about this before, Stephen, when I had you on my podcast, is that we talked a little bit about how around April the interest rates were kept the same, and the market went kind of bananas again, and there was multiple offers on a lot of stuff. Now the interest rates have been kept the same in early September, and I haven't really noticed the same effect happening. I'm curious to kind of see how it goes as we get into the fall market, because that's almost here. And I think also there's some people that were waiting for those. I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but a lot of these rate holds that were in place too, and then they see all the interest rates are the same. Maybe they're not as really pent up to purchase something really quickly, but
yeah,
transactions are still happening. I've had a really fun year with my clients in terms of just people buying and selling because, hey, they want to move to London because of work. They are going through a family event. They're having a kid. It's back to what real estate agents really were able to help with people before this whole
100%.
pandemic thing happened.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I think we look at rates and stuff like that, and you know, so just recently, inflation's up again, 4%. I don't know if my social media is just getting sarcastic or I've just given up giving a shit. But I put on my Instagram and my LinkedIn and my Facebook saying, if you didn't think inflation was gonna go up, dude, I got some magic beans I gotta sell you because here we are, right? Like it's just simply not possible to keep inflation low right now when you got the feds jacking up, taxes on gas. Everyone's mortgages are going up, right? Because they're now renewing into higher rates. And let's face it, we're still dealing with, I keep saying $10 brick of freaking butter. So, you know, it's just not going to happen. It's like you're hitting your head against a brick wall and you're like, man, my head really hurts and I don't know why. Well, I can tell you why, right? So I, I think Canadians have to feel really good about what they're doing. And Phil, we might be in a situation here where you're correct. A lot of rate holds are now up, right? So, September, we got closings, beginning of October. That's right around 4 months out from when rates were last, we'll call it reasonable, quote, reasonable. But now we're getting into a lot of people are on vacation this summer, right? That means money out the door. Okay. Now is it almost like January where people are now after Christmas, they spent way too much money and now they're out of money, right? Like, are we now at that point where we have truly hit the peak of these numbers don't work anymore, right? And I think here's my gut feel. Ready for the prediction? I'm going to put it on camera here, and if it's wrong, well, too bad. But um, I honestly think we're right around the actual breaking point right now where I think we're going to see everything just kind of grind to a halt. I have a lot of appointments. I've met with clients and it's all the same thing. They're well qualified, they could buy tomorrow. Yeah, but we're going to wait and see what happens, okay? Through experience, pent up demand happens, things slow down, all of a sudden maybe a rate moves, comes down a little bit, something happens, and then the pent up demand just goes boom, right? And then we're right back to people buying houses. So I think personally, that's what's probably going to end up happening because we got so many people living here, and we got so many people that want to buy houses, and we got so many people that are immigrating here. Like it's a simple supply and demand equation. We just need the government to get on board with this a little bit. So yeah, you know what? I think that's the kind of thing I think we're going to see. And to your point as well, obviously the international students have been in the news a lot lately, right? And I believe they are the folks that are paying or able to afford these $1,200 a month room rentals as students at Western, Waterloo, Windsor, wherever they are ending up, right? So, we'll see what happens, but yeah, more to come on that because that could put a university town like a Waterloo, a Western, Windsor to an extent, but that could put them in a bit of a tight situation if they're not getting all this revenue from these international students. So we'll see what happens. But,
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading today just StatsCan data. Well, I don't normally read StatsCan data, but sometimes I do. And I'm not
exciting,
that
isn't
nerdy.
it?
I'm not that nerdy. But I was reading it, and it was interesting that the average household size in London is 2.4
Okay.
people. And it's interesting because when I look around, and I think that's if you take, obviously that's looking across the board. If we take a lot of people in, kind of my group, it's like the people that I hang out with, at least, yeah, maybe two, maybe three if they have a kid, maybe four sometimes. But a lot of the time I feel like there's so many factors for a place like London. And yeah, I'm biased. I'm a real estate agent here. I bought real estate here. Like I agree with it, but there's reasons why I did this, right? And I think it's
Yeah.
you have an exceptional amount of university students and Fanshawe students that are coming back all at the same time, right? So they need places to live. There's smaller family sizes happening across the board, really. There's just not as many houses as we need, right?
Yeah.
And so all of this demand, it's like you're trying to stop a train by putting your hand in front of it and thinking you're actually going to stop it. And
Yeah.
to me, it's just absolute like a lot of these government kind of little band-aid fixes that they're trying to put in are just not going to stop a complete culture that's been completely against building a lot of houses quickly and it's
Yeah.
been very not in my backyard around every single corner that we can see, right? And
Yeah.
especially in a place like London, I think there's probably every town has that, but there's a lot of we don't want that built here or we can't have that here and there's a reason and it's just delay, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm hoping this sentiment kind of changes around those things because if you have 2.4 people living in a house or whatever, right? So we'll say some of those are going to have one person living in a house. Some of those might have
Yep.
three, but on average, there's a lot of people that are being looking, and I'm noticing that in my business that I've had a lot of people that are obviously they have jobs that can do this for them, but they're just buying a house, right? There's one single person and they're buying a house, right? They're from
Yeah.
probably a different area of the country, and London is quite affordable compared to a lot of the larger cities, and obviously Toronto's just down the highway, right?
Yeah.
So I think overall all the factors are pointing to real estate will be worth more in the next 10 years than it is now. And
So-
I don't I never make predictions, Stephen, but I mean that's
Yeah.
something that I strongly believe in, and I don't see how it can't be just based on all the factors working towards it.
So I was reading, and I talked about this on my last podcast. I gotta find it because I read it. I know I read it. I know it's factual, but I don't have the exact details. So CMHC came out and they said by 2030, which guys, it's only 6-7 years away. It's crazy to say that, but by 2030, we're going to be short like 3.5 million homes. Short, if we keep going the way we're going. And they also said that house prices are expected to rise by, drumroll please, 83%. And I'm like, I read that and I'm like, oh my God. Like, how's that happen? And listen, I'm all for prices, staying stable, moving up, whatever. But, it's like, wow. And I'm not shocked by that a little bit, but not really. Like, it makes sense. So, to your point, we're going to have more people spreading out. Like, I get people all the time. The main question is, how far away can I live from my job that the lender will approve my deal? Like, how long is an acceptable drive to work, right? Hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes, what's acceptable, right? So if I'm talking to, a client in London, they're asking me, what about Sarnia? Like, is Sarnia acceptable, right? Or if they live in Kitchener, Waterloo, how about London? Is London acceptable, right? Or whatever it is they come up with. So, people are People are, what is it? Drive till you come by, right? It's like I keep saying, drive till you come by. And I think here in London, we're going to see that. We're going to see people coming from wherever just to get in,
Yeah.
So we'll see what
Yeah, and it's
happens.
interesting because I think we talked about this before a little bit, but it's just the average price of, if we just pretend that the pandemic didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
right, for a second, and we just look at just real estate prices and we look at just starter homes, right, which is a lot of these people will want to buy as their first house.
Yeah.
You were able to get a house. I said this before, 250,000 maybe before this pandemic happened. Yeah, it wasn't great, right? But it was a house, and you could live in it, and it had doors, and it was detached from everything else. And now, that house during the pandemic might have been 500,000, and that was pretty crazy, I know. And now that house might be 350,000, maybe 400,000, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not a mathematician here, but I would say that 350, 400,000 is higher than 250,000, and that's if we just pretend that the pandemic didn't happen at all. Right. And I think that that's what's interesting is because there's all these blips of right now. I think too, what's happening is there's a lot of people that are saying, well, John sold his house for $700,000 just a year and a half ago, and I want that price. And then they list, and then they don't get it, and then they relist, and then the prices go down. So like that stuff just takes time. And what I tell a lot of my buyer clients is that time is the best medicine for price to cut down to the reality of what we're seeing the market be worth. Sometimes you get lucky, but I remember selling houses for probably 150, 200,000 more than some of them were selling after the pandemic. And I worked hard. I got my client the best amount that we could at the time, doing all the right things. But now I'm seeing the opposite. Like I'm seeing let's do really shitty photos on a listing, and let's cheap out on everything, and let's try to reduce what we're doing. And to me, like the thing that pissed me off the most during the pandemic is that people would say, so you made that much money and you put a sign in the lawn, right? And I said, well, I can understand what you're saying, but as a real estate agent, what I did, I mean, maybe not everyone did this, but like what I did is I worked my butt off. We did, professional photos, professional video, professional marketing, do the offer strategy properly, all the things we had to do to get them the most money. Yeah, some people think I control the entire Canadian economy and it was my fault that the housing crisis happened. But I don't have that much power, I promise. So
I knew that you were the one to blame. I knew it. I finally found you. Perfect.
I know, it was me, yeah. So now it's like, okay, now we're in definitely a slower market. So let's do all the stuff that we still should be doing, right? Like this is the last time, kind of point that you want to make is let's cheap out on everything, right? And I'm noticing that more and more, and I'm seeing the cell phone camera, the digital camera that my mom owned in like 1995 making it's coming back again. And to me, it's just lazy listings were lazy listings during the pandemic. Yeah, you sold them, but you probably left sometimes $100,000, $200,000 on the table. And I think that's
So are you seeing that right now with listings? Is that still happening where the people are just not putting in that time and effort into doing all those little things?
Yeah, and I think it's happening. It'll probably. I mean, it happened a lot during the crazy land because people thought they could sell it, but most people were pretty professional and hired professionals to do the job because they wanted to maximize the price. Now, I think there's some people that are disappointed in the price that they might be getting in the market, and they're trying to save a nickel, but they're losing, $10,000, $20,000.
Totally.
Right. It's like, what is it? Yeah. Penny wise, pound foolish. Right. Like it's just, I'm seeing that happen over and over again, where nowadays I think it's even more important. And again, I'm very biased here, but I think it's more important to hire professionals to sell homes because we are actually having even more of a role, and we're seeing what's happening with the market. Like, I'll be very clear. Pricing right now is hard.
Yes.
Having someone that has no idea what they're doing, they sold a house, once in the last 30 years. I mean, it's probably going to be harder for them than it would be for someone like myself that does it, weekly or daily, that we're pricing homes, right? So I think that kind of stuff, it drives me crazy because I see it and I'm like, that person that hired you is now, the terrible photos are now up on MLS now, and they should be, to me, and sometimes it's I understand it's the seller, like they might be going more that route, but during which what I thought was interesting is like a lot of the stuff is coming back where the lazy listings are back in even a bigger way, and I think that that's just it's crazy to me, right? It
Yeah.
should be the opposite, you think, but nope.
Well, and I think anybody, and mortgage brokers as well, mortgage brokers, realtors, anybody who started in the industry about 2021, they only know one way, right? And it's quick, easy money. Quick, easy money, right? Put up a cardboard box, boom, $1 million sold, right? And I saw that in the mortgage world as well. What was, and again, this might not be completely accurate, but 2021, I think there were like 28,000 new mortgage agents hired in Ontario who wrote their exam and passed. Okay. And that's part of the issue with the mortgage industry. I think it's like $800 to write an exam and boom, you're a mortgage agent. So that's a whole other freaking podcast. But anyway, um, these folks now, right? They got to work really friggin' hard, like really hard. And getting back to the art of negotiation, right? How do we deal with clients who are maybe pushing back on staging or whatever the case may be, and just kind of doing what's right for the client and stuff like that. If you want to see, bud, here's your homework, okay? If you want to see the best pictures ever, go to realtor.ca, okay, and look through small town Newfoundland, okay,
Okay.
and New Brunswick down east. But there are some awesome pictures. I say awesome with complete sarcasm. Some are really
Yeah.
nice, totally, right? But I remember can't remember who I sent it to, but I saw one where it's like, it was a bit of a rough house, right? But there was like the contractor was half there with like, his plaid coat, and, one had the sun coming and you couldn't even see what was on the picture. And those are the best, man. I look at those pictures and I'm like, that's priceless. That's amazing, right? But
Yeah.
it's
It's
important. So,
I literally saw in one I remember not that long ago. It was like there was like a pack of cigarettes on the table, like in the photo, and I just thought it was like
awesome.
just so like wow, like you've made and it wasn't even like it was they were trying to make it nice. Like that's the thing is just they
Yeah.
just like missed the pack of cigarettes that was on the table, but like so many people missed that, right? Like the person, like the photographer missed it, then the agent missed it, and then they put it up on. Well, like we have to like look at the photos, then we have to put them up, then we have to go through them, right? So it to me, it's like to miss that, it just seems so. Just again, it's like that lazy listing type thing that we're seeing, and again, like most people are doing a great job. I don't mean to be negative, but it's just
No.
I'm seeing some stuff, and I'm like, this is the last time you should be. This is the kind of market you certainly don't want to be doing that in,
Yeah.
because you need to stand apart from the competition, because there is competition where before there wasn't. Like I sold
Yep.
I showed a client like 7 or 8 places and maybe a couple Saturdays ago. That wasn't even like a possibility. You can't show 7 houses in a Saturday. Like it didn't exist
Yeah.
because there's only one available. I remember during the pandemic there would be a 15-minute slot available because we couldn't overlap either. So there'd be a 15-minute time available for like 7 days.
Wow.
And now you have 7 listings you can go see really whenever the hell you want, and I can line them up for you, and you can kind of have your pick, and then wow, you can actually negotiate on price, right?
Yep.
And that's something too that's I think important is like work with the agent, right? Like if you're writing an offer, don't think. People keep asking me, and it might be again some people that started during like the crazy land where they're saying, "What's your offer date?" And like sometimes like what do you talk like they won't have that, like that's not a thing, right? Like we have it on some listings, but like it doesn't happen nearly as much as it did, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, if we write you an offer, like counter us, like let's talk, right? Like
Yeah.
let's have a conversation, right? So I think I find that part really fun,
Yes.
really, and I think it's like where we actually can earn a lot of our money as real estate agents as well, is kind of the negotiation part. But you're right, it kind of starts with negotiating with the client at the start to a certain degree to say, hey, we need staging, we need professional photos, we need this because you want your house to be worth the most amount as humanly possible. Well,
Yeah.
in order to do that, we need to do all these things, and then we might have to have some luck with weather or something on our side, which is always
Yeah,
a funny
totally.
one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny you bring up staging and some of the other things, and you know what? It's nothing. It's a good idea as long as it makes sense, right? Like, hey, put in, I don't know, staging. Put in 3 grand in staging. Hey, you should get 10, 20, a little bit more back on it if it's staged properly. Like, I know when my wife and I, when we finally at some point get to retire, whenever my damn kid leaves, hopefully when we sell our house, I told my wife, I'm like, you realize we've lived here for a while. It's going to take like 2 or 3 months to prep this house, and we're going to have to stage it because we don't have clutter. We got a lot of crap, right? So it's like, it's going to take a couple of months. It's not going to be a throw it up and sell it tomorrow sort of deal. And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, I know. But yeah, it's a necessary evil,
Yeah, well,
prepping it
and,
like
yeah, and
that.
it's interesting too because it's all relative, right? Like you go to
Yeah.
certain people's homes, and it's like I have a listing where this house looks like it's staged. It literally looked like it was staged. I walked in and I'm like, wow, like did you have it? Like I was so
Do
confused because I
people
was like,
live here?
yeah, I was like, you live here, right? And then I know like these clients are awesome, and they just yeah like literally like kind of live like that, right? And
Yeah.
then I and they were very open to any ideas, right? Like,
Yeah.
you want to do this, do this. You don't want to do this, like we'll do whatever you can, like we, and I was like, really, there's not much to do. And
Yeah.
then I see the other side sometimes where yeah, we need a lot of work, right? And sometimes that's the starting point of we need to get that stuff cleaned out, right? Like
Yeah.
I can sell it, but I'm just not going to I can't get you the same amount of money that you would get if you didn't have stains in the ceiling or something that's and a lot of time it's like the issue's been
Yeah.
fixed, right? Like the
Yeah.
issue has been fixed, but you just didn't repair the drywall, right? and
Yeah.
and it's a lot of stereotypically, but it's a lot of time it's someone actually sometimes keeps care of their house super well, new furnace, new roof, everything else, but their furniture's from 1980, right?
Yeah. Fair
And
enough. Yep.
the lazy boy is pretty, or it's comfortable, but it's not as pretty as that you would like, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird. I find I've been a huge kind of, I guess I've always been into like the staging side's always been important, but I've been even more into a convert into it just with some sales I've had in the last 12 months
Yeah.
where they've made so much more money because of staging, but also just like they get a sale. Right now you might not get a
Yeah.
sale, right? If you don't stage, because your competition up the street staged and they look beautiful. And so you got to compare to that.
Yeah. It's you won't offend me, buddy. Like I grew up in an Italian household. Everything was covered in plastic.
Yeah.
So it's like 40 years later, it's like brand new. So no offense taken here. If you've ever been in a hot summer day without air conditioning and your furniture's wrapped in plastic, you do not understand the pain of that. Okay, so no offense
So
taken
true.
here on the furniture side. So.
That's good. Yeah.
All right, I got to throw this at you, and to the folks listening and watching, Phil was not prepared for this. So if he screws this up, he's got an out on it. All right. So because he gave me advance notice, but I said, you know what? Screw that. You know what? I'm going to throw it at him and see what he does. He's a
Oh God, I'm
London
nervous.
boy, whatever. Yeah. So all right. So you ask all your guests this. What's your top 3 restaurants or eating establishments or watering holes in beautiful London, Ontario? Go.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
this
yeah,
is
that's right.
so hard for me because a lot of my friends like either like they own these places sometimes or they're involved in them, so I got to be
No,
really
there's no
careful.
cop out. There's no cop out. This is
Okay,
where you're going to
well,
make or break your career. So go ahead.
I'm
On,
doing
on
it.
my on my podcast. Go
I'm
ahead.
doing it. So, okay, let me I'm going to preface this with
Oh,
one thing.
here's the disclaimer. Okay, go
My
on.
preface is for the last whatever at least year of my life, I don't really go out anymore because I have a small human that we have to take care of, and we don't, we're very like we're new into like even letting someone like watch the monitor while this kid sleeps. But
Yeah.
I do have some really good ones, and I'm just gonna go from more recent. I have a recency bias right now because
Okay.
I've been involved in this in the
Are you
last
a
little
lawyer?
while.
Because this disclaimer is going on for a while. So, like,
Yes.
come on, man. What are we doing
I
here?
don't want to be a lawyer. Yeah. Okay. So here, Phil's top 3 places that you should visit in London, Ontario, and
Yeah.
go. All right. You need to go to Forked River Brewing.
Okay.
This place is And I'm actually going to plug an event. And Steven, you're 100% invited to this event, so you should come down to London for it.
Go for it.
So I want to say it's December 2nd, but if I'm wrong, just go to my social media and you'll find out exactly the day. It's
Look
a
at you,
Saturday.
just throw it in the shameless plugs. I love it. Go for it.
First Saturday in December, I do like, we call it a community appreciation event. We do it at Fort River Brewing, and we get Santa Claus himself to be there. So you can get a photo with Santa. I get a professional photographer.
Nice.
It is awesome. We just did it for the first time last year. It's at Fort River Brewing. It's in East London. Great place. I think it's like the OG of craft breweries in London, and it's an amazing place. Great beer, great food. My friend Kyle, he has Kyle's Fried Chicken that's literally located there. So it's his own business, but he has it there as well. So that would kind of be like another one that I would add to the list too, as a point B on number one. Okay, number two. This is going to make me sound like I drink a lot, but I'm also a huge fan of, they're kind of like the same. I say they're different businesses, but the same location. We always go to Anderson Craft Brewery, and then there's the brewing. It's called London Brewing now. It used to be called the London Brewing Co-op.
Okay.
So we had a really cool event that I went to at the London Brewing, which was a trivia event, and I got my ass kicked, but that's okay. Anderson's has some amazing beer as well, but that's kind of in Old East Village. I have an affinity for Old East Village, and I actually had some clients just moved to Old East Village, and I was really, really happy to kind of help them out with that purchase as well.
She went drinking every night. Is that why?
Yeah, I used to. No, not evermore, but yeah, I definitely say that I like beer, but I can have like one or two nowadays, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
All right, good night now. It's time to go to bed.
Damn kids, eh? Kids just ruin
everything.
No,
they're
don't they,
great.
man?
They're fantastic.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. What's number three? Okay. I'm going to say number three is a place I haven't been to in a little while, but I absolutely love it. And it is called, have you been? Bungalow.
No, I have not.
So Bungalow is the best place to just get like an amazing gourmet hamburger.
Ooh.
They also have great, craft brewery on craft brewery. Yeah, I mean, there's a common thing here, and it is one of just the best burgers. They actually, I can't remember the guy's name, but they filmed some like reality TV show thing there and everything, where the guy goes around to different restaurants. And you know what I'm talking about.
You got to eat here or something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's that.
That's
it's
the
that
Canadian
place.
version. Yeah. Okay.
So they just have such good food. I used to go there a little bit more, but it's a place that I want to go again soon. So I'm going to put that on the top 3 list that probably might turn into a top 5 list. Thank you, Stephen.
You got to cover all your clients here, right? I got a top 20 list.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other cool places in London. It's just like I think those are like kind of the place where you can consume things, right?
Yes.
And I also say, like, go to the Western Fair Market. It's an amazing place. There's some amazing just people that run businesses out of there. There's some amazing food there too, great desserts and everything. And I think it's good. They're going through hell right now in Old East Village because of all the construction. So I would just say go to all those businesses, please, because they need all the help that they can get, because obviously the construction happening right now, I tried to go down the other day, and I honestly was like, it was really hard to just even find a parking spot. So, yeah. Damn.
Well, you did good. You did good for me putting you on the spot like that. Good job. I know what you're going to say. As soon as this thing's done, I'm an asshole.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So for those of you who don't know, when we're doing this, we do these
I just
podcasts.
have so many. Yeah, I have so many. It's like I could go on forever. Yeah.
Well, when we do these podcasts, for those of you who don't know, we send out just some notes beforehand. Phil sent me his when I went on his. It's like it's bulleted, it's numbered. It was like 7-8 things. It was fantastic. Me, I added 4 or 5 things in a calendar entry and sent it to him, because on this show we don't really go very good with scripts, as you can probably see now, right? So I was a fake it till you can make it, baby. It's all good.
It's good. It was hard to follow, Stephen, but I actually think not having the script can be kind of a nice way to go about it, because it's just a lot more real that way. Yeah. I mean, I go off in tangents, but that's okay. It's been great to kind of yeah, go off on these different tangents, and you allowed me to, so thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, totally. It's like a therapy session on the Green Effect
It
podcast, right?
is,
So
yeah. I need it. Yeah,
that's it.
I can't afford it, so thank you.
That's right. I wish that wasn't funny, but it is.
I know it's true. Yeah.
Oh man! All right, let's get this thing done with because then we're gonna start to get in trouble. Listen, Phil. Other than people going to housesigma.com or the app and whatever, how can people actually get a hold of the real Phil Bailey?
Yeah, so Instagram, you can go on there if you want to. I use Instagram a lot. It literally is the Phil Bailey on Instagram, which I think is hilarious. So thank you, Steven.
Perfect. I see, making it up, baby. It's all good.
Yeah, probably
Taking
best way,
notes.
just go to philbailey.ca, and that's my website. Pretty original, philbailey.ca.
That's
And
it.
then and you can also just text me too, honestly, if I have my own cell phone that I respond to, so it's 226-977-2348, and
Cool.
I usually get back as quickly as possible. Just say your name though, because some people text me from podcasts and then they don't say who it is, and then I'm like, am I supposed to know who this person is? And also, if you're trying to sell me something, I'm not buying. I'm good.
Oh yeah, it's been bad lately. Eh? Are you getting like phone calls for all sorts of shit to buy? And I'm like, I'm just hanging
Yeah,
up on people. I'm like, just stop. My God, it's
they're
no.
just they're trying to sell me leads.
Oh,
That's what it is
oh, you're
usually.
getting
Yeah,
that, are you? All
yeah.
right. I
And I
get
just say
harassed.
like,
I get harassed on my Instagram feed all the time.
oh
It's
yeah,
like
all the
my
time.
phone's
Yeah,
listening to whatever job I do. It's crazy.
yeah. It's
All right.
brutal. Yeah,
Jeez, man.
it is. Yeah.
All right, buddy. Listen, thanks so much. All right, we'll do this again for sure. A lot of fun. And for all those out there, so as we end up, and most of our podcasts, I don't know how we came up with this, Phil, again, on the topic of making shit up as we go along. Love me, like me, want me, desire me, star me, favor me, whatever, and keep fit. Have fun. See you later.